Yo guys, I've got a spark which I'm going to use to ignite the fire for the penultimate episode of Skylanders Imaginators Versus here on the channel. Right off the bat, you'll notice not only am I placing undead characters onto the portals for their respective casts, but there's also question marks as opposed to our regular stats thrown about on the UI. And that's because I want to keep it a mystery as to what the winner of each of those stats are. Obviously, it's very easy to track for those of you who've been watching the entire series thus far. I want to thank the hundreds of you who do such a thing, but for those of you who haven't been keeping track of the entire series thus far, it's going to make that final episode all the more surprising when the winners of all of these categories are revealed to you for the first time. In fact, this series is coming up for a very exciting finale period, and this episode has its fair share of excitement. It's called Glitches Galore for good reason. But that being said, both of these team cast members have finally made their way to the start level, where we're only going to be tackling the Lair of Chaos in this particular episode because we're saving the boss fight for the finale of this series, a finale which will also feature an award ceremony. Now, I've opened up the survey to the public, so you can use the link in the description below to vote on 5 different categories for the award ceremony taking place in the finale. That's right, you guys get to shape the future of this series, and it's all via the link below. It's very exciting type stuff, so let me also know in the comment section below after you finished voting on that award ceremony whether you like the idea of the finale having surprises in store through the question mark statistics, or do you think the question marks are a bit of a mess? The UI was a bit of a mess to begin with, so adding more of a mess to that is a-okay by me. And speaking of things that are a-okay, the villains get to switch out for the beast, the mighty Chompy Mage, who has so far proven himself as a very difficult adversary for all of the enemies on screen to be facing against, as Chompy Mage grabs himself a treasure chest. This is obviously going to be one of the levels where both of our teams are going to aim for 100% completion, at least when it comes to collectibles. When it comes to no lives lost, that's going to be a little bit more tough because there is a incredibly tough gong battle coming up later in the stage. But first things first, Chompy Mage has to complete the puzzle involving Prison Break's disembodied hand, as Pit Boss has only just made his way to the start of the life area after having struggled with the opponents. Whilst Wolfgang was very easily able to triple up damage by having his speakers that dealt damage to enemies, and whilst they were dealing stack damage against enemies with that, he was also firing off his more powerful projectiles, and projectiles were being shot through his speakers all at the same time. So yes, he was indeed tripling down on damage and dashing through the stage, whereas Pit Boss was struggling. He's already down to just over 100 health. Luckily, Ambush has a dash move, so he was able to get through that section very quickly and avoid damage along the way. But the villains, unfortunately, went through this round first, so whilst Wolfgang did lose a little time by dashing to the wrong side of the platform first, due to just how quick that dash was in the first place, the time that Wolfgang lost is actually the bare minimum, whereas we switch back to Pit Boss on behalf of the Sensei's as Undead has popped up again, and Pit Boss is only just beginning the snail challenge as Wolfgang opens up his respective Imaginite chest for the villains. Not that you can even see what counter they're at, mind you, because once again the entire UI is decked out in question marks. So based on what response I get from the comment section of this video, I will determine whether for next series of Versus I do, if I even do another if I even do another season of this series, I should say. I'm not yet decided, but if I ever were to do another season of Versus, I would like to know if this question mark UI is better for the entire series, so that then it's something that you cannot track, make the finale and the final results that much more exciting, or whether it's just too much of a mess, because that is very much a possibility. But like I said earlier, the UI was a mess to begin with, so can you really make more of a mess just by adding more of a mess to it? If it was already messy in the first place, is that how mess works? I suppose it is, because I said so. That's how the rules go. I don't make up the rules, I just reinforce them. Anyway, Wolfgang has completed the disembodied prison break hand puzzle thingamabob, which is a bit of a mouthful. But he's going to defeat these enemies first, because it's definitely not worth keeping them around when he goes to tackle the Battle Gong. In fact, speaking of keeping stuff around, he wants to keep that food around, because that way he'll give whatever villain goes for the second round of a Battle Gong a better shot at actually beating it. But first things first, there's this final enemy to deal with, and if only the Pet Back clones could help out with the Battle Gong challenge. Anyway, Pit Boss here needs some help. He's already down to 84 health. And never mind, he's down to 0 health. So whilst Wolfgang has only just begun with the Battle Gong challenge, the Senseis are switching out for Starcast, because Starcast is the chompy mage equivalent of the Senseis, in the fact that he is our go-to character when things become dire and desperate. When in doubt, swap out for Starcast. He proved his worth against the quick shot doomlander. Wolfgang, though, took so much damage and it got stacked against him. I suppose this is how the enemies feel facing against him, because he has been defeated. So now the villains are in doubt. They're going with Chompy Mage, because when in doubt you go with Chompy Mage. But the villains have a lot more ranged characters left than the Senseis do, because Starcast is actually the final ranged Sensei left. Which wonder? I mean, the others all have question marks in front of their faces, so who's to say, unless you've been keeping track of the series thus far. But it is a lot of fun to go from the first episode directly to the finale and react very directly to the evolution of the series. And I know a lot of people love doing that, especially for Locks, where you want to watch the first episode to see kind of how the Locke establishes itself, to see what the cast looks like, and then you want to watch the finale to see how far through the Locke certain characters have made it. I get that appeal. It saves a lot of time as well, especially if you've played these games and watched enough of these games. Even with a different Locke and different rules for the gameplay style, it can become tedious after a while. I would know, I played through these levels twice in a row, for Pete's sake, and this is one of the worst the game has to offer, so boy was I feeling that tedious nature by the end of the Sensei run. But what's not, well, it is tedious, at least for the enemies, having to deal with a slow and painful death, because these characters, they are playing very efficiently. Chompy Mage is using his Chompies and his Chompy Puppet to knock back enemies and keep them constantly at bay whilst damage is stacked up against him. And Starcast is using his Shadow Clone to draw enemies away from him and deal massive chunks of damage to everything all around him all at once. It is a very slow means of defeating all of the enemies around him, but it is effective in the fact that these guys are not being killed off so easily. They both have used the slice of pizza that their companions left behind for him. But you know what? Whoever needs it. Starcast is already halfway through the fight with 300 health to go. And Chompy Mage is looking even better than that, over 400 health, and he's also just about that halfway marker. Now, the biggest trouble is the big guy in the middle there with the shockwave. As soon as you get past him and all of the other projectile chaos clones, then the hand-to-hand guy, so long as you don't do anything stupid, which for a player such as myself is something easy said and done, but point is, as long as you don't do something stupid, you'll be fine. Now here goes Chompy Mage once again sticking with his age-old strategy of knock back an enemy, run away, knock back an enemy, run away. Whoever said that wasn't effective, right? Because clearly boring is working here. Who cares how boring you are so long as you are surviving, and that's exactly what Chompy Mage here is. He is a survivalist. Now, it seems as though Starcast is not actually struggling with defeating all these enemies all at once. He's struggling with actually having all these enemies surrounding him to deal damage to them quickly enough to defeat them as quickly as Chompy Mage is. As you can tell, the enemies are spread out and they're constantly being knocked back by the clone, Starcast clone. In fact, all of them are spawned in at this point, but you can only see 3 of them on the map, 2 of which Starcast is just absolutely obliterating with his knockback abilities. So there's 2 left on the screen, which begs the question where the final one might be. What we don't need to question anymore is whether Chompy Mage will be successful, because he has now defeated the final enemy and has granted himself an Imaginite chest. Meanwhile, Starcast seems to be wandering around aimlessly. You'd think that that final clone right there is one that you need to complete the Battle Gong challenge. You'd think that, right? Well, let's find out. He's been defeated, and yet still, there is one enemy that is nowhere to be seen. Where is he? Is he off stage? Is he underneath the map? If he got knocked off, then why wasn't he defeated? I was circling around the map like this as Starcast for 30 minutes. I even initiated the Spine Saucer, which is an attack I never do with Starcast. So after a very infuriating glitch occurred, since there was only one enemy remaining, and Starcast has already proven that he can definitely best this Battle Gong, what we've done here is we've reloaded through the level, and as I was replaying through the level, mind you, we got that treasure chest that Ambush missed earlier. I didn't realise earlier that I missed it. I just felt that it didn't save for whatever reason because of this glitch from the Battle Gong. I was wrong and I collected it from this second playthrough anyway. But yes, we got Starcast back up to the point of the Battle Gong. Since, like I say, with only one enemy remaining, I doubt highly that one enemy would have defeated Starcast with as much health as he had remaining. It's safe to say he would have defeated that Battle Gong regardless. So we just got him back up to the state he was in previously. And we don't mind him being at full health, because at the end of the day he would have been maxed back up to full health from that healing circle anyway. And speaking of healing, Golden Queen doesn't need it because she's only just been spawned in from the Earth element. These enemies, though, they're going to need some healing when Golden Queen is through with them. Never mind. This is the part where you realise that her turrets, the thing that made Golden Queen as busted as she is, those turrets are one-shot by the Chaos Clone Shockwaves. That is rough, but I'll tell you who doesn't get their most useful attacks one-shot so easily. That's Barbella, our Sensei representative, who is being switched out for just as Golden Queen is defeated by the onslaught of enemies right there. That is a truly tragic way to lose what has been one of the most beastly villains throughout the entirety of this run. But unfortunately, good things must come to an end. Not everything lasts, and so Golden Queen's life, that was a good thing that just had to come to an end, I'm afraid. But Barbara, on the other hand, absolutely obliterated everything. She knows already that all we need to do to get past this villain gate thing with Bob is defeat the big guy in the middle. She's got rid of him, and she's healing herself back up after having taken some chunks of damage herself. But she's perfectly capable of buffing herself back up and getting back into the fight, relatively unhazed by the damage she took before us. Meanwhile, Hudsicle, because of the additional switch out and the fact that he's so close range, he took a lot longer to defeat the big dude than what Barbella did, so the villains have lost a ton of time, and they continue to do so as they fail the Troll Radio, and the Senseis have yet another switch out with Chain Reaction right here, because the tech is the stronger element of the area, and despite Dr. Crankcase having a question mark in front of his face, he couldn't be used for this episode. Chain Reaction is also failing for Troll Radio, though. I don't get how feeling it is supposed to help, because clearly whatever he's doing is not working. He's failed it a second time, so let's find out if third time is for charm for the Senseis. That's a much better start for Chain Reaction. And just like that, boom, never mind. He failed it miserably for a third time. I guess third time's not the charm. Meanwhile, the villains are already midway through their Creation Clash game against the Might of Glumshanks himself, though they are currently losing 2-3, so they really need to step things up. They're going to incorporate Graveclobber into their strategy, where they might be able to take Graveclobber, but this is what they have Airstrike for in order to defend against Flarewolf and take Dr. Crankcase, which will result in a 5-4 victory. That is some fine strategy from the villains right now. But now they're playing as Hudsicle, one of the slower most characters, and on both sides of the spectrum we seem to have our Sentinel representatives. These two are going to go head to head for the first phase of the Chaos fight, as the Chaos fight is dealt with by the Sentinel representatives of each respective cast. Hudsicle is going to go back as he notices the treasure chest out of the corner of his eye, but he forgets the healing circle, the magical healing circle of raw untamed awesomeness. Now, speaking of more untamed awesomeness, we got to utilize this here frying pan to fling Hudsicle over to the opposite end of the platform in order to reach a soul gem. But here I am, as a villain, not even realizing that the flying pan I'm using is the wrong one to get launched to the island, and instead I wind up getting launched straight into our second glitch of the episode. It would appear as though the dark element in this game is just incredibly jank and literally broken, because Hudsicle, he can still jump, but he can't do much of anything else besides spaz out. That is one of the most bizarre glitches I've ever seen. So, like I did with StarCast, I had to restart the level, play back up to that point, and then place Hudsicle back onto the portal, and again we're back here at full health, because all what he would have done is restore his health on the health pod anyway. Plus, it was only fair, given that that was the same treatment that StarCast received. And man, Hudsicle, he is too heavy. He is too intimidating to this flying saucepan thing with Bob to be flung to the other platform correctly. This is where the Senseis have made up for all of their lost time from the glitches and the constant switch outs. Barbella is now at the final prison break puzzle, but Hudsicle has a dash which is quicker than that of Barbella. And the Senseis also need to switch back to their Dark Element representative, so pretty much all of the time that the Senseis have gained is being lost instantly as they complete this final puzzle neck and neck. This is the closest ending we're going to have for the entirety of the Versus series to date. And just like that, the final cutscene isn't going to be where we conclude this episode. This episode is going to be concluded at the black screen right after the objective screen is showcased, mind you. But as you can see, this is about as close as you can get in the first series, and yet still, even with a nail-biting episode such as this one, a glitchy episode such as this one, the senseis are still coming out on the bottom, but not in terms of their losses, because the villains lost 2 this episode, whereas the senseis have only lost 1. I cannot wait in for the finale to find out what those final results will be, but as for right now, the villains have concluded, and just like that, as have the senseis. I cannot, in good conscience, end off this video without first thanking all of my incredible channel members whose continued support help make these videos possible. Without them, these videos would be near impossible to make, so from the bottom of my heart, I truly appreciate every last one of them. If you enjoyed this video and would like to see more, there are plenty of options on screen now to explore, and please consider subscribing to keep up to date with all my content. On that note, this video is coming to an end, so thank you so much as always for watching. Until the next video arises, peace!